Okay, so we are going to start with 2023 paper, and then we can decide on which other paper we can do after that. We're going to try and see if we can get through each paper in an hour or less. So we'll see how best that can work. So just give me a second, let me share my screen. 2 seconds, just okay. So again, this is 2023 paper. You get at 1 15 minutes to do it. It is, I'm sure this is not the first paper one that you guys are doing. I believe that IT was last week. So we can try to see how fast we can get through this. Obviously, no homework, but try to select the best answer. Now, when you're doing the paper one, best advice I can have for you is to go through and answer all of the questions that you're sure about first. And then after that, you can just take the rest of the time and go through the questions that you are not sure of. There are always going to be two answers that are close together, and it is going to be difficult to decide which one it is, but you essentially have to choose the best one. There are also going to be times when the answers that are there, you don't agree with any of them, but you still have to choose one of them. And in that case, we'll always try to choose the most appropriate answer. So please bear that in mind as we go through the session and for when you actually have the paper later on this week. So we're going to start. So the first question is asking you what you can use as a feature to classify the group insecta, which is all of our insects. And out of the four that are there, the most suitable answer would be what? D. So anytime it comes down to insects, we are going to be looking at the number of segments. In some cases, depending on what answers are there, the number of legs may also be an option. But in most cases, it will always be the number of segments because they are segmented organisms. Then for number two, it is asking you the difference between niche and habitat, and both of their definitions are there. So yes, for number two, answer is wild habitat is where they live. For number three, asking about abiotic factors, and you're supposed to look at the list and determine which of them are abiotic factors that affect living organisms. So we know that parasitism and those are not you each and for each of the other one personal does as John. So the most answer in this with soil and pH. For number, there are which organisms are most important in biology for the breaking down of I'm not sure. I'm breaking because I always hopefully I don't continue to break up. Do I sound any clearer now? Um, hope sorry about that, guys. I am not sure what happened a while ago that got me kicked off, but I will try to continue. All right, give me 2 seconds. Again, I am sorry about that. Just to confirm that you guys are still hearing me. All right, cool. So we're just going to move on as much as we can and just work with the program. So for number 4, it's asking you about the organisms that are important in biodegradation or the breaking down of organisms and different types of matter that we have. So the most appropriate answer for this would be A, with bacteria. Although all of the other ones play a part in breaking down material, bacteria is the most important one here. Omnivores is not really considered as one, but vultures and earthworms, but bacteria would be the most appropriate. And for item 5, it is asking you to look at the following food chain, and you are supposed to identify the organism that would be considered a secondary consumer. Which one of these organisms would be a secondary consumer in this case? You. So A, your eel. Secondary meaning the organism that second. So the first one to consume is the larvae. The algae is obviously not consuming anything because it is very evil. And then we're moving on to the genetics, or these are some of the questions that are going to go. You will get something from each of those sections going down. So basically, they ask you about everything in the syllabus. So for number 6, it's asking you to identify the different food chains that are there. So you just start from the bottom and go up. So you know you have this one, that's one, this one, that's two, and then this, that's three. Sorry about that, everyone. Technical difficulties. All right, so just starting up again. Number 7. It's asking about energy flow in food chains, and you're supposed to explain why only 10% of the energy in food chains is available to the next organism. So you basically have two options that are close, A and B, and then you would decide between the two of them. In this case, A would be the most appropriate answer because it is where most heat is lost. So yes, it's where most energy is lost. So yes, energy is lost in respiration, but majority of the energy that you have in your body is lost as heat. So A would be the most appropriate answer. And then you're looking at number 8, and you're supposed to determine which of the following processes converts organic matter to inorganic forms. So if you are aware of what happens in the carbon cycle, you're just going to look at which ones would produce something like oxygen or carbon dioxide, or when you would have other inorganic molecules like that. Anything that would make glucose or something like that wouldn't be an appropriate answer. So in this case, we would go with 2 and 5, so here and here, because they would be contributing to atmospheric carbon dioxide, meaning that they will be putting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and carbon dioxide is an inorganic form, and those processes would be producing it from an organic form. So in this case, 2 and 4, 2 and 5, sorry, 2 and 5, C is the most appropriate answer. And then we move on. So, do we agree with number 8 answer, or is there anybody that would put something different, or you had a different answer? Okay. All right. So number 9, which of the following outcomes would be considered a negative impact or negative impacts of human activity on the environment? So we know that obviously pollution would be included in the answer, because we know that pollution is a result of human activities. For the other two, would you consider those things that are caused by human activities? All right, so in that case, we're going to have to go with 1, 2, and 3, because all of these things that we see here are caused by human activities. Pollution, habitat loss, whether if you're clearing it for land for human activities, and climate change is as a result of pollution. So all of them are linked with human activities. So D would be the most appropriate answer, all of them. And number 10, which of the following are effects of pollutants on coral reefs in the Caribbean? So we obviously, when you look at your options, this one, number 2, would not make any sense, because if you're getting more corals, that would not be, well, what do we say? We can either go 1, 2, and 3, or we can only go 1 and 3. Do you think pollution contributes to a specific type of coral? I said D in the answer, then I said B. I had D as my answer because I'm not exactly sure where pollution, while it would introduce certain things, I'm not sure if it would necessarily have that result of giving you a specific type of coral on the reef. So in this case, I would have gone with B as my answer because I feel like it would have been the safest answer. Number 11, it is asking you about this graph right here, and we know that this graph is basically a sigmoid growth graph, so the different stages of growth in a population. And it says stage 4, so where you see population decline, what would it most likely be as a result of? We know that if they have adequate food and space, that won't cause the population to decline. Same thing for birth rate and disease resistance. So A is the only appropriate answer there. What you can do if you're not 100% sure, you can really look at the other answers and just eliminate based on what makes sense and what does not make sense. So A is the most appropriate answer. When compared to a cheap cell, I'm getting more mitochondria because the mitochondria is there for energy and the muscle cell needs a lot of energy, not when compared to a cheap cell. So it would have more mitochondria. So number 12 answer is C. Number 13, we know that the answer would be D, because D is the nucleus. Number 3, so if we're supposed to go, if they had changed the question and was asking for the different parts, or they had asked you about 3, what would 3 have been? So I, here, vacuole. So while they do repeat questions, sometimes they may change the part of it that they're asking you for, or they may change up the answer. So you have to read carefully, even if the question looks familiar to you. And then number 2 would be your chloroplast. And 1 would be your mitochondria. And then we go on to number 14. It is asking you about the diagram of the xylem vessel. And it's saying the major feature that is responsible for the rigid structure of the xylem vessel is A, where the lignin. So the lignified walls are what give us the rigid structure in the xylem. Number 15, this is a diagram that shows up a lot on the papers, where it is asking about the potato and the salt, and which part of it, when you add the salt, would the water rise. So in this case, it is asking you, where would you add the salt for the water to rise in the petri dish after 20 minutes? So which one of them would we select? If you want the water to rise inside of the petri dish, where would you add the salt? You would add the salt in B. Yeah, because you would put the salt in the petri dish, because when we put the salt in the petri dish, that would allow water to be drawn out from the potato, from the inside of the potato into the petri dish with the water, creates the area of high concentration where the water will move out into the petri dish. So this question, although they have not changed the content that they're asking you, still read it carefully, because maybe one year they decide that they want to ask you what would cause it to rise inside of the indentation in here. So you have to make sure that you are not being tricked because you think you know the question. So still read it even though it looks familiar. For question 16, it is asking you about the effect of limiting factors on photosynthesis. So you have the rate of photosynthesis and then you have light intensity. So our answer would be, for number 16, what are we thinking for the answer? So yes, C is our answer. The only other answers that are there that could confuse you is B, where it talks about the light intensity increasing. The rate of photosynthesis also increases until a stationary phase exists when denaturation of the enzyme occurs. This cannot possibly be the answer, because if the enzyme became denatured, you would have the graph going something like this, where it would go down, because you would have photosynthesis occurring after the enzymes have started to break down. So that's the only one that could maybe confuse you. Remember that the graph is showing you the rate of photosynthesis against light intensity. So for C and A where it starts talking about carbon dioxide. That is not what the graph is showing you. The reason the carbon dioxide is there is because it is now showing you that carbon dioxide is what is limiting the rate of photosynthesis instead of the light intensity. So that is why you see the carbon dioxide there. So outside of that, it has no role in what the graph is showing you. And for number 17, it says which of the would enhance the least absorbed soil. C, the bundle doesn't have any role in the photosynthesis, but it's there for. But all of the other things are features that would have been needed for photosynthesis to take place at a specific rate, or to enhance the photosynthesis that is taking place. And then we move on to 18, where it asks you what is produced in this process. So you know, you say water, light, and carbon dioxide. It can only be photosynthesis. So what is produced in photosynthesis? D, so glucose. Because you just have to use your clues. You know that light, once light is involved, water and carbon dioxide, it is obviously photosynthesis. You see them talk about chlorophyll in chloroplast. So that's the only thing you can be talking about. And it tells you that it is a plant cell. And then number 19, it asks which part of the tooth would have the number of blood vessels running through it, blood vessels and nerves. C. So inside of here is your pulp cavity. That is where you have your nerves and all of your blood vessels inside of the teeth. Everything else outside of that does not have any of those blood vessels. And then for 20, it is asking you about the effect of temperature on enzymes. And we know that when it reaches beyond 40 degrees, the temperature starts causing the enzymes to be nature. So you will have a drop off. So the answer would be D. Because the enzyme activity would decrease because they have died because the temperature has passed 40 degrees. 21, it asks you to pay attention to the amount of salt in a man's diet, and he has a high chance of developing what? It can only be hypertension. But we know that hypertension is what they will tell them to control their salt intake. So hypertension is the most appropriate answer. 22, it asks you which option correctly matches the gaseous exchange structures with the same. So know that A and D are out because it has human as trachea, and we know that that's not where gaseous exchange happens. So it's between B and C, and our answer is going to be D. Humans use their alveoli and the fish use the gill filaments, and plants, we know that they do gaseous exchange through their leaves. And then 23 is asking you which of the following structures represents the rib cage. It would be D. So this structure right here is what represents the rib cage. If you never know, you can find a way to out yourself because you know that you have all of these going down. So obviously they would be representing the bones. '24, what does carbon monoxide do? It reduces the oxygen transport to the blood because it binds with hemoglobin over oxygen. Then 25, what's our answer for 25? So our answer is D, because humans have a very large volume but a small surface area. So our ratio is too small for diffusion to be an effective way of transporting materials. And then 26, it's asking you what is the sequence of events for blood clotting. We know that it obviously has to start with this damage to a blood vessel. So the only one that starts with damage to a blood vessel is B. So if you weren't sure, that is your answer. That's a way that you could figure it out. So you have damage to the blood vessel, then the platelets are activated, fibrinogen is converted to fibrin, and then blood cells are trapped. So that's the order in which it happens. 4, 3, 1, and 2. So D is your answer. 27. Was it difficult to develop a vaccine for the common cold? So why do every cold season we need a different vaccine? D. So the antigens on the virus change frequently. So we cannot use the same vaccine for every cold season. And the antigens are what causes us to become sick. So because it changes, we cannot use the same vaccine every year. In the transport of solutes in the phloem, the source is identified as any area of the plant where what's our answer for 28? I see two different answers in the chat. Some are saying D and some are saying C. So for the persons who say C, why are we saying C? Why would we consider it the source? Can we explain? Because it's loaded there. Okay. And then for the persons that said B, why would you consider that the source when it's taken out of the phloem? Source is where the sugar is taken from. So that's what we're talking about. It's where it's taken from and then it goes to the sink. The sink is where it would be let off out of the phloem, and the source is where the sugar is taken from in the first place. And because it is coming from the source, it means that that is where you would be putting it into the phloem. So the answer is C. It is where it is loaded into the phloem. Where it is taken off or where it's taken out of the phloem is your sink. Where it is put on is your source. The main storage product of plants, starch, because they convert glucose to starch to store it inside of them, because starch is not a reactive substance. So that's why they store it as starch. And you can always remember with starchy vegetables and growing provisions, that is how they store it. So it's obviously going to be starch. And then for 30, which of the following substances is removed during ingestion? Our answer is D, undigested food. What if they had asked which of the following substances is removed during well, all of the other ones would be excretion. So yeah, so if they were asking about excretion and they changed any of the other answers, you would know that you can use urea, excess water, the bilirubin, and all of those things are things that are removed during excretion. So if they were supposed to change the question and ask you about excretion, it would be any one of those as things that are removed during that process. 31. Which of the process is not a form of excretion in plants? It is obviously going to be A on 31. As it says, carbon dioxide diffusing in through the stomata. If it is coming inside of the plant, then that cannot be excretion, because excretion is where we remove certain substances. The plant does not remove carbon dioxide like that, or doesn't remove it as in that way. So our answer for 31 would be A. Do we agree? All right, so everybody agrees. So number 32, which of the following changes in the concentration of substances is most likely to occur in the kidney of a person who suffers from kidney disease? So how would your blood concentration change? What would you see, more or less, if you had something happen in your kidney? So our answer would be what? Our answer would be A. So an increase in urea. It cannot be B, because if we have kidney disease, your kidneys are functioning how they're supposed to function. So they would not be removing these substances. So it cannot be any of the ones that talk about a decrease. An increase in glucose that has nothing to do with kidney disease. That is when you have diabetes. So our answer would obviously be A, 32. Which of the following correctly describes movement in plant? So we have growth movement, part movement, and whole body movement. So for 33, what is the answer that we're going to go with? Okay, I see B. Yeah, I would agree with that because we don't see the whole body movement in plants. They might move different parts of themselves, so their leaves or their stems. And we have growth movements when they grow towards the light or they grow in the opposite direction of gravity. But outside of that, we don't see any form of movement of any whole body in any plant. So it is obviously a part movement or a growth movement. So our answer is B. For number 34, what's our answer for 34? Hmm. All right, so our answer is D, blood cell formation. We know it cannot be mastication. That has to do with digestion and the mouth and all of those things. Immune response, that is your blood. And hormone formation, that is formed in either the areas that the hormones are released from or by the pituitary gland. So none of those can be the answer. So it's blood cell formation. You know that you have your blood cells being formed in the bone marrow of your long bones in your body. So that is why we consider blood cell formation. And it says number 35, locomotion is important to animals for, it's for avoiding predators and reproduction. So three has nothing to do with locomotion. So it is A, 1 and 2. And number 36. What is our answer for number 36? For number 36, I see B. Are you sure that is the answer? So yours for B, you're saying that number 2 here is your relay neuron, and then this neuron, that is what you're saying for B. So our answer is A. Your sensory neuron is wherever is in the area that is hmm, wait. So the skin of the hand, we have our biceps, and then we have this would be inside of your so 3 would have to be your relay. So only C and A have 3 as a relay. And then your motor neuron, that is where is usually attached to an ear that is going to carry about some movement. And your sensory neuron would be in the area that is detecting whatever stimuli is there. So it is between A and C. So it caught me as well. I had A on my answer sheet, but now that I'm looking at the question again, it seems like C would be your answer. Reason being because the skin of the hand would usually be where you have your sensory neurons. You wouldn't have your sensory neurons in your bicep muscles. That is where you would have motor. So in this case, C would be the most appropriate answer. Again, that's why we need to go back and check through our answers. Because sometimes when we look at it, we say, no man, you know the answer, yeah, I put it on the paper. But when you go back and you look at it a second time, you actually see that you were wrong. So that one caught me. It's C, that is the answer. So if you have enough time, at the end of it, when you have maybe 10 minutes or so, try go back through the paper and read over the questions and make sure that you did not choose anything, any wrong answers, or you didn't choose an answer that when you look at it, you say, wait, that don't make no sense. All right, then, so number 37, what best describes stimulus and response? So we're gonna go with B, because stimuli is any change that is in the environment, and it's obviously a change that you can detect in your body. And then your response is obviously the reaction that you give. So number 37 is D. And then 38 is asking you about the skin and which one of these things that are labeled are not involved in temperature regulation. So we have 4, 1, 2, and 3. So what's our answer? Anybody? Not sure, not sure. Okay, I see the answer, so it's B. So in this case, 4 is, do we know what number 4 is? This structure right here? It's your sweat gland. It's your sweat gland. Then 1 is the here erector muscle. Number 2 is your sebaceous gland. And number 3 is your capillary, blood capillary. The blood capillary is involved in temperature regulation because you do vasodilation, where you widen your blood vessels, you send more blood to the skin, and you are able to cool down that way. That's why sometimes if you are like a skin tone, exercising, or if you're doing if you're hot, you tend to look flushed because your skin is sending more blood to your body sending more blood to the skin. Your here erector muscle is involved in temperature regulation because if you are hot, your hair is going to lie closer to your skin. If you're cold, it is going to stand up to keep you closer to your body. And then we obviously know that the sweat gland is involved. Your sebaceous gland, all it does is secrete oils. So that is not directly involved in temperature regulation. So that is why number 2 is the answer that we would select for number 38. We're good? Everybody understand why it would be number 2? Or B would be the answer? All right. And then for number 39, your choroid, which is the dark layer inside of your eye, it is there to prevent internal reflection of any light inside of the eye because it absorbs any stray or excess light rays. And then 40, it is asking you, it's telling you that the person is nearsighted and it's asking you how the defect can be corrected. So it's asking you about the lens that you would use and what that lens would do for 40. So what lens do we use to correct nearsightedness? We use the diamonds because it will spread the light rays outwards, because for someone who is nearsighted, your eyes are too long. So in that case, it settles, your image is formed in front of the retina instead of on it. So you use a diverging lens to spread the light rays so that they will settle further back in the eye on the retina instead of in front of it. So A would be our answer. Did anyone have an answer that's different, or we agree with that one? Or we understand how we come up with the answer for that? All right.
Excuse me, Miss, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if it was the opposite, like it said, with um item 40 refers to the following diagram, which shows
Hardness.
farsightedness. So it would be
Mhm.
converging inwards.
Yeah, because for the far-sighted person, their eyes are too short, or they're smaller eyes. So what happens is that the light rays settle um behind the retina instead of on it. So in that case, you want a converging lens to condense the light rays so that they start focusing further up in the eye, so the image can actually end up formed on the retina. So if the question was reversed and they were asking about farsightedness, it would have been D, that would have been the answer. Converging and inwards. But diverging, whenever something is when you say you divert something, you mean that you send it in different directions. So in that case, when you have a diverging lens, what it does, if you have your light rays coming like this, your diverging lens, so yeah, your diverging lens, which is a concave lens, would do this. And then if you have your convex lens, which is the one that looks fat in the middle, and you have your light rays coming from different directions, it brings them up. So you have this happening. So they come closer to each other. So that's what it means. Converging means to bring together, and diverging means to spread out. So that's what's going on there. So your concave lens, which is what they call the diverging lens, that's what it does. It spreads the light rays out into different directions. And then for converging lens, which is what they call a convex lens, it brings them closer together. So you could now understand the difference between the two of them? Yeah, all right. And then for 41, it says the statement below describes the process taking place within a seed during germination. And we're supposed to put those three steps in the order in which they would occur in the germination of a seed. So to me, the way that you would approach this question, if you're not 100% sure, you think about what's the last thing the plant would do. So obviously, it would use it to develop. It uses food to develop the radicle and plumose. So one would be the last thing that happens. The only answer that has one as the last step is D. So D is the answer. So we have the enzymes. Remember that the inside of the seed, everything is dormant, and then something triggers the germination, whether it is light, moisture, temperature, is it? And then you have enzymes that begin to break down the stored food inside of the endosperm or the cotyledon. And when it breaks it down, whatever is broken down obviously would move into the embryo. The embryo would use those substances to grow the plumule and the radicle. So the first leaf and the first root, so that it can actually do photosynthesis now. So it doesn't have to rely on stored food. So for 41, the answer is B. And then for 42, it's asking you which of the following labels would be incorrect on the y-axis. So our y-axis is over here, and our x-axis is down here. So we can never put time on the y-axis. Time is always going to be on the x-axis. Your y-axis has things that are dependent on what is on the x-axis, basically. So time and anything that it just exists outside of your control, it's always going to be on the x-axis. So in this case, the answer would be units of time. And then for 43, the production of new organisms from one parent is asexual reproduction. For 44, it's asking you to identify which of the statements true about both flowers. So for 44, what's our answer for 44? Okay, I see one person saying D. Does anybody else have a different answer? Oh, everybody's saying D. So D is the answer. We know the difference between them. So I is pollinated by the wind, while IIR2 is pollinated by a hummingbird. So we know that anyone that has these wispy kind of structures is usually pollinated by the wind. So that's why they're like that, so they can be blown off and moved in the wind. Versus this one over here, where we know that that would have pollen, not pollen, nectar inside of it that would attract birds and other animals like that. So that's why D would be the most appropriate answer. And then which of the following forms of birth control is most likely to be 100% effective? It is going to be between A and C because both of them have a high effective, they're highly effective, but condoms can burst. There can be some manufacturer's defect where it does not work how it's supposed to work. But tubal ligation is basically female sterilization where they go in and they tie off the tubes. If the tubes are tied off, there's no way for the egg and the sperm to meet. So in this case, tubal ligation would be the most appropriate answer because that is the one where you know that there is no chance of any sperm meeting up on the egg. And then for 46, which of the following structures is common to both an egg cell and a sperm cell? B. The acrosome is only inside of the sperm. So this area right here, that's how we call that. Um, uh, uh, Cell wall, we know that that is not in animal cells, and the cilium is usually some form of tail or something like that. So the only one that would have that is the only thing that all of them would have in common is the nucleus. And then for 47, it says, which of the following shows the correct sequence for seed formation after fertilization? I'm seeing D. Some person saying D. And I am seeing some people saying A. So our argument is between A and D. So for the persons who are saying A, why is the A? Can I explain why you would choose A? But we have a debate now. A and B, A versus B. So Joshua says ovule after fertilization and seed after development. Shanice starts with an ovule and then it develops. I had put A as the answer. However, we can leave that to check at the end to see which one is the answer. So we have the argument between A and D. So we'll check that at the end, and then we're going to move on to number 48. So as I say, if you find something and you're not sure, we can always check at the end, or you can always think about it at the end. So yeah, Alicia, we're going to come back to that question. And then for 48, it says which of the following diseases matches this category. Okay, I see C, D. I had C. Cholera is not physiological, it is caused by a pathogen. Pellagra is a deficiency of, I think, niacin. It's a deficiency disease, so it cannot be hereditary. Atherosclerosis is when you have the thickening of the walls of the arm, and that is usually caused by an excess of fat. So we cannot have that as a deficiency disease, because deficiency disease is caused by the lack of something in a diet. So AIDS would have been the most appropriate answer in this case, even though it's still shaky. It's the most appropriate answer for this question. And then 49, it is going to be a vector, because that's an organism that transports some disease-causing pathogen, but it itself is not affected by it. So a mosquito that transports the pathogen that causes malaria, the mosquito itself does suffer from malaria. It does not catch any, it doesn't show any of the symptoms of it. It just transports it. So that's why we call it a vector. And then for the epicycles, which one of the which part of the life cycle for the mosquito it would be most efficient? It's going to be B, because it's only when they are adults at number 4 that they are flying in the air where they would be affected by aerosol products or insecticides. Which of the following descriptions best defines a chromosome? So for 51. 51 is B. So it is DNA wrapped around histones that make up the chromosomes. And then for 52, we're looking at the diagram of mitosis, and they're supposed to state the correct order in which the stages occur. So C, you have the parent cell, then this starts happening. This would be last, where you have the 2 daughter cells beginning to separate from each other. So 3 is first and 4 would be last. So you just look and figure which one would have that. The 2 answers, so you would have to determine what happened first, 1 or 2. So this would be 1, 4, 2, 3. So you would have these first, and then you have the separation of the chromatids into different cells. So our answer would be C. And then for 53, what's her answer for 53? So the sugarcane is on the island. A fungus was accidentally introduced and the entire crop of sugarcane died. What best explains the occurrence? Why did all of the sugarcane die? So all of them caught the same disease. All of them died. So D. D is the most appropriate answer. When they talk about hardy variety, it talks about what can withstand the cold most. The old doesn't necessarily mean that they're more susceptible to the fungus. If they were that old, then what was the point anyway? That so a picture on the end was just that old that they died from. That doesn't make any sense. the two close with the fungus spread easily, even then when the fungus is spreading easily between them. If there was variation among the population, they would have been able, at least some of them would have been able to survive. But because the entire population died, it means that all of them got the same genes, so they had no variation where one or two would have had some resistance to that fungus due to a mutation or something or different allele. So D would have been the most appropriate for this. And then for 54, which of the following statements about meiosis is not true? So we know that genetic variation occurs in meiosis. We know that gametes are produced, so it cannot be A or B. We know that it forms haploid cells from diploid cells, so D would have been the most appropriate answer. And then number 55 is a genetics question. So it says, in the pea plants, purple flowers are dominant over white flowers. What percentage of the offspring are likely to have white flowers in the following crosses? So if you have a homozygous dominant with a homozygous recessive, and then if you have a heterozygous with a homozygous recessive. So for 55, if you're unsure, you can literally just drop a Punnett square on the paper and you work it out. Yeah, so A is your answer. Do we understand how we got A, or do you want it explained? Do you want me to try and drop the diagram and show you, or do we understand? All right, explain. So, let me use this little space down here. So it's you have purple flowers over white flowers. So we can use P for purple and W for white. So P we will use a capital letter, and then for white we use a common letter. So we know that it is which one is dominant and which one is recessive. So say you have a homozygous dominant with a homozygous recessive. So PP would be your homozygous dominant. And then your homozygous recessive would be this one. Or let me just use the same letter for simplicity. And then you just do a square, so it would be all of them would be heterozygous, meaning they have a dominant allele and a recessive allele. So it would be 100% heterozygous. So you don't even really have to work out the question anymore, because this is the only one that shows you 100 or 0 for the heterozygous condition. And then if you have a heterozygous with a homozygous recessive, oh, it's asking which one would have the white flowers. So in this case, we all have the ones that are heterozygous, and you would have needed this, the two common P's, to have white flowers. So because we don't have that, we know that this is the answer, because this wouldn't have any white flowers. So you don't even need to go any further. But if you wanted to, so to know what this one is, heterozygous with homozygous recessive, it would have been PP for the heterozygous. And then two common P's for the homozygous recessive. And then you do your square again. these two would have white flowers because they are homozygous for the recessive white color. And these two would have been heterozygous, so they would have been purple. So this is the 50% white. So that is how A would have been the answer. So again, you just have to know how to work these things out, know what heterozygous means, know what homozygous means, and know just be able to do your Punnett square. So that is how we K as our answer. Are we good? So Swan, Alicia, the other person who said to explain. Do you understand? Okay. And then we're going to move on to 56. It says one example of a sex-linked disease is color blindness. Cancer is genetic, but it's not sex-linked. Hypertension is a lifestyle disease, and Down syndrome is a genetic disease that is caused by extra chromosome present on one of the pairs that are there. Color blindness is a sex-linked gene. It is transported on the X chromosome on the 23rd pair. So that's why we call it sex-linked. For 37, it says variation in population is due to, it has to be mutation and crossing over. We know that asexual reproduction does not give any form of variation. So it would only be 1 and 2, which is A. 58, a species consists of members that D. See this question? Oh no, please keep your eyes open. When the guys in one eye open when I'm sleeping, I'm gonna keep one eye open for this question because they ask this question a lot, but they change this. So they will say infertile instead of fertile. Then trick you because they think when you see this, they say, no man, you know this, and you don't realize that they have changed the fertile to infertile, and you choose B as your answer. So please keep your eyes open for this question because they ask it almost every year, but sometimes what they do is they change the options that are there. And when we do the other two papers, you will see what I'm talking about. And then 59, following descriptions is true about natural and artificial selection. So for 59, natural selection, we know that occurs naturally. And for artificial selection, is when you go in and you pick the organisms that you want to reproduce and you allow them to reproduce to get specific traits. So it is asking you what you're comparing them to see what is true about the descriptions. So A, it says natural selection occurs in domestic populations, and then artificial selection occurs in natural selection, natural population. It cannot be A because artificial selection is when you pick the organisms that you want to reproduce. You as a human, so it cannot be A. B, it says involve genetic modification, and then it says largely controlled by the environment. That is out. So it is between C and D. It says natural selection is a faster process for the, but artificial selection is a slower process. It can't be this. Natural selection takes, while you do see it happening where you have certain organisms being able to reproduce, it does take a longer time for you to see the results. But for artificial selection, it doesn't take that long because you just pick them, you know the traits that you are looking for in that population and what you want to see. You put them together and they reproduce and you get the offspring with those traits. For natural, sorry, for natural selection, it takes a longer time for you to see specific traits being shown up inside of the population like that. So it's your answer, the most appropriate answer is C, where it says it produces great biological diversity, and artificial selection, it produces very different organisms from the natural population. So for instance, if you are supposed to some varieties of peas or different crops, if you're supposed to compare ones that are grown by farmers to naturally occurring populations, we'll see that they are different because the artificial one, they have chosen the genes or the traits that they want to see in the population versus for natural selection where it has a lot of diversity. You have some tall one, you have some short one, you have some not so nice one compared to some nice one. So C would be the most appropriate answer in this question. And then our last question is asking us about recombinant technology. It's asking about genetic engineering. So basically, this is where we are able to produce insulin by inserting it into bacteria. So we cut the gene for insulin from a human gene, we put it inside a bacterium, and we allow that bacterium to replicate. And then when it replicates, we go back inside and we extract the insulin that they have produced. So this is talking about recombinant DNA. So I'm seeing person saying C for the answer. It says in which of the stages above can insulin be produced by the bacterium? So some people are saying C. This is just the plasmid or the part of the bacteria that has the DNA where you have cut it and you have inserted the gene for insulin. So this is our DNA and this white part is the gene for insulin. They have certain proteins that they use to cut it. And when they cut it, they cut the plasmid with the same something, so it's the same shape and size, and then they insert it into it. It cannot reproduce like this, or it cannot replicate like this, because this is just a single part of the bacterium. This is when you put it back inside of the bacterium that is there. So the bacterium then now has that within its DNA because the plasmid is the part of it that has the bacterial DNA. When you put it inside of the bacteria can now reproduce, and when it reproduces, it is going to reproduce and produce insulin inside. So in this case, it would be D, that is the answer. This cannot produce by itself. It has to be inside of the bacterium. So D is your answer. Please go and read over the part of your textbook on genetic engineering that would have been in the section C in the last section. I'm not sure the exact page or part of the book that you would find it, but you can just go in the index and look for recombinant DNA or genetic engineering, and you would go to that section and read it. Someone is asking about question 55. So for 55, it is asking you which percentage of the offspring are likely to have white flowers in the following cases. P for purple is the dominant. So they would have the dominant color is purple. So W represents the recessive color, which is white. So if it is homozygous dominant, it is going to have 2 dominant alleles. And if it is homozygous recessive, it is going to have 2 recessive alleles. So it's asking you if this organism and this organism, come together and have children, what is the possibility for them to have offspring that have white colors, white flowers? So you would do your cross or your Punnett square, whichever one, and put their alleles inside of it, and then you would see what the outcome is. PW, 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 PW. All of the offspring is heterozygous, meaning that they have a dominant allele and a recessive allele. The recessive is the W and the dominant is the P. Because the dominant is present, all of them would have purple flowers. 0% would have white flowers. So you already know the answer is A, because 0% is there for the white flowers cross sizes. If you wanted to go further just to be sure, it says heterozygous with homozygous recessive, PW with WW. PW would be purple, WW would be white. In this case, you have 50%, meaning 2 out of the 4, having white flowers because they have 2 recessive alleles, which would give them the white color. Yeah, so that is why this would have 50% because it's asking about the possibility for the offspring to have white flowers. So in this one, it is 0% because all of them would have been purple in color because all of them have a dominant allele present. While in this one, 50% of them would be white, while 50% is purple. This one is purple because they have the dominant allele, which gives the purple color. This one is white because it only has recessive allele, which gives the white color. And for it to be have the recessive trait expressed in its physical, it needs recessive allele. So this is why this one would be the answer. A. Okay, so the only question that we had that we said we would check back is number 47. So we can take a little 5 minutes and then we will answer that and then we'll move on to either 2022 or 2017. It depends on which one you guys want to do first. So you can say that in the chat which one you want to do first, and then we will work on that. So take 5 minutes, so we'll come back at 5:38. Because it's 5:33 now, so 5 minutes, and then we come back and we do whichever one of the people you guys want to do, and we'll answer question 47. All right, so we are back. Just to go back to question 47, our answer be would be A, because the ovule is the egg, so it has to start with the egg. Whenever we have fertilization, a zygote is formed, and then the embryo is what is contained inside of the seed. So your answer is A. So you can't start with the embryo because the embryo is what is inside of the seed. So our 47 answer would be A. The years that we are going to decide between is 2022 and 2017. So what year do we want to do? 2017. Okay, so everyone wants to do 2017 paper. All right, so 2017 paper it is. All right, so 2017. All right. So, give me a second. All right, sorry about that. These have the answers on it. I had gone through before and cleared them, but I'm not sure why they still showed up. So, starting with 2017 paper, what do you notice about the first two questions on 2017 paper compared to the one that we just did? It's the same as 2023. Same question. So we know that for number one, the answer is B, and then for number two, the answer is A. Niche is the role an organism plays, while habitat is the place that it lives. Number three, it is asking you about predation, commensalism, and parasitism, and which one of them bring harm to the organism involved. It is 2 and 3. Commensalism is when none of them are affected. And then parasitism, we know that you have a parasite living inside of a host causing them harm over time. And predation, you know that they obviously kill the other organisms for food. And then for question 4, a herbivore and a carnivore and omnivore respectively are based on the food we are supposed to by a herbivore, a carnivore, and an omnivore. I don't like this question because it is asking you based on the diagram. However, in the diagram, although we know the answer is A, in the diagram, the man is only seen eating chicken. So if you were supposed to use it based off of the diagram, you would think that the man is a carnivore, because you only see eating chicken. And then C is the only other option, but we know that goats are herbivores. So the diagram itself kind of shaky, but 4, your answer would be A. Goat for herbivore, carnivore would be your lizard, and your omnivore would be man. Number 3 is 2 and 3, parasitism and predation. So question C, option C, sorry. And then it says we saw this question as well, so we know our answer for number 5. A. For number 6, which of the following is not true about decomposers? They reproduce faster in low temperatures. That is why you put food or other substances in the fridge to keep them for longer, because it does not allow those things to reproduce at a fast rate. It slows down their reproduction or their growth. So we know that putting them in low temperatures would not increase their reproduction rate. So B would be the answer for number 6. And then number 7, it is asking you about the predators in the food web. So if it has 1 in there, it cannot be a predator. So A is out. For 3, scarlet macaw, it is eating on a fig plant. So if it has 3 in there, it cannot be an answer. It's not hunting anything. It's not. So our answer is D. The toucan is eating a scarlet macaw, which is another bird. So it would be a predator there. And then for 4, harpy eagle is, for 6, sorry, harpy eagle is eating the toucan and it's eating a sloth. So it would also be shown as a predator there because it's eating another animal. So D would be the answer for number 7. And then number 8, we know our answer for number 8. Answer is A. And then number 9 is asking what is the main advantage of recycling? Your answer is C. Recycling saves on raw materials, because when you're recycling, you're using these products as the raw materials to make new products. Number 10, is someone speaking? Someone has something to say? Or that was the accident? That was an accident. So it says, which of the following statement best outlines why the coral reefs in the Caribbean are at risk? So what is the best option for this question? Someone said A. Someone said B. So I'm seeing A and B. Anybody else? Or are we unsure? So we're going to work with A and B. For A, if you had chosen A, you would have gotten it wrong. It says, which of the following statement best outlines why the coral reefs in the Caribbean are at risk? If you are overfishing invasive species, would that pose a risk to the coral reefs? Because it is invasive, it would not be it would be helping the reef, because invasive species are species that's not supposed to be there in the first place. And it would have been causing harm on the reef. So for example, the lionfish. Lionfish kill all of the other herbivore fish that are there on the reef, and it's causing problems because we have the reefs dying because we have overgrowth. So A would not answer. B can be an answer either, because if it's a popular tourist destination, they would have been protecting the reefs. It says which best. So even though some of them are close, you have to really think about what is your best answer. It cannot be D either, because if you decrease the volume of fluid of sewage flowing into the reef, that would be good for the reef. So in this case, the only one that we see here causing harm or posing a risk to the reef could be hurricanes, because we know that the coral reefs are there to break the force of the waves when the hurricanes are coming in. So in that case, we could have some damage to the reef because of increasing the number of hurricanes. So that's why C would be the most appropriate answer here. So for if you were to use A, you would get catch because this is in A. So that's why I say you have to read your questions carefully, because they will do little things in the answers to trick you or to catch you so that you choose the wrong answer. So in this case, we have to choose C because it is the best answer in this case. You might not agree with it 100%, but compared to the other options that are there, this one is the best one. And then we'll move into question 11. And it's again giving you some question on population. So you're asked why there was a change in the population size from January 1980 to January 1989. So there was a decrease in the population. So we're looking at things that would have caused the population to decrease. So 4 cannot be in there, because if we have a decrease in fatal crimes, we would have had some increase in the population. If we are having contraception, that would decrease population. I have less babies being born. If you had an epidemic, you would have persons catching disease and dying. And if you had migration, you would have persons leaving the area. So all of those would have contributed to a decrease in population. So we can say 1, 2, and 3, which is option C. It can't be A, because it is asking what is causing the change in population size. It can't be A alone. If we have migration occurring, migration can actually cause that as well. The only case where it could be A is if the migration that we're talking about is persons moving into the population, but they don't specify it. So 1, 2, and 3 can work as an answer for here. And then 12, it says, so we know what this is, we know it is like we did it already. And then for number 13, the part labeled X is what? It's your strand of DNA. Bacteria does not have a nucleus, so the DNA is just inside of the cytoplasm existing. So for number 13, it is strand of DNA. And then for number 14, now what's our answer for number 14? Incorrect. It says what is incorrect. So it cannot be A, because it says found in only plant cells. For A, for a cell wall, and we know that to be true, and a cell membrane is in both a plant cell and an animal cell. So it cannot be A. D is our answer, because it says that the cell wall is found in both plant and animal cells. We know so not so. So our answer is D, because we know that the cell wall is only found in plant cells. Yes, Swan, that is what will catch you when you could have get a nice extra mark right there. So because you didn't read the question properly, you now choose the wrong answer. So you have an hour and 15 minutes you have more than enough time to go through 60 questions. And because the questions are so similar, because they repeat, you have time to go through them. So don't rush to answer the question. Still time yourself, but do not rush. Read the question carefully. Because as I said, they will change one and two words in the question just to trick you. So if you don't read carefully, you will choose the wrong answer. And then for 15, it is asking you, we have a continuous and a dilute sugar solution, and it's asking you what was showing you the process by which substances are moved in and out of cells, and it's asking you to follow, identify the correct process that is taking place. So in this case, our answer would be C, osmosis, because it is movement of water molecules, and then it is moving from a dilute concentrated solution to a concentrated solution, because you realize that this becomes lower, and this was the dilute, and this is the concentrated, and it moves across the membrane because you had more water in the dilute solution than in the concentrated solution. So your answer is C. So look at the question carefully, and it is telling you what is what. So you know that the water in the concentrated one has increased. When you look at the level, you see that it is higher than what it was before. And the dilute one has decreased. So obviously, water is moving from over the dilute into the concentrated. That's the only way that this could have gone down. So C is your answer. And then 16 is asking you about food tests. So that lab where you had your different foods tested. And it's asking you about the positive, what the positive color change means. Whenever you see violet, it is protein, blue, black is starch, and the orange precipitate is for non-reducing sugars. So your answer is B. Protein, starch, and non-reducing sugars. 17, it is asking you to define the different types of nutrition, and one of them that have an example for it as well, or is an example. So for autotrophic, we know that it uses simple inorganic substances to manufacture organic substances, and an example is green algae. That is true. The inorganic substance it's talking about is H2O and CO2. Those are inorganic substances, and it uses it to make glucose, which is an organic substance. For heterotrophic, humans is an example. We know that is right. And you consume complex organic substances to give you simpler substances. Again, when you take in glucose, your body breaks it down into carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Sorry. So you're breaking it back down into simpler substances. So that is true as well. And saprophytic, we know that you use dead organisms to get nutrients. So all three of them are correct, and fungi is an example of a saprophyte. So D is your correct answer. And we know this question, the only thing that you would have to do is to read through the options just to see if they changed anything, because it is still asking you about the rate of photosynthesis. And we do not see them change anything in the answers, so we know that D is your answer. If it maybe had asked you which substances know increase of photosynthesis, you could say carbon dioxide, because that is why they put it here. Because the carbon dioxide is limited, it's life intensity doesn't matter anymore, because it just stands out like that. So that is if they had changed the question, but because it's the same question, this is your answer. 19, best. That's why they put it in capital letters. An enzyme is defined as a molecule which we know obviously that it is between A and C. Between A and C, which one best describes what a enzyme is? Between A and C. C. So the fact that they remain unchanged at the end of the reaction is better descriptive of an enzyme than to just increase the rate of a chemical reaction. That's why they have the best in capital. So that's why we say you have to read through and reuse your brain to decide which one is better. Because both of them are correct, but this one is just more correct because I give you more information. So in this case, C is your answer. We know 50, hypertension. We know 20, sorry, hypertension. 21, when it asks you about the surface area of the lungs, how is the surface area of the lungs increased? E, large numbers of alveoli. We know question 22. What's our answer for 22?
Miss, I think we skipped 21.
No, this was question 21. With the lungs, the increase in the
Oh, it's
surface
24,
area
never
of
mind.
it. So this now is 22. B. This question, they've asked it before, but what they do is they change nicotine. Before they asked about carbon monoxide, but now they changed it to nicotine. So that's why I say you have to read carefully. So our answer is A, increases heart rate. So question 23, our answer is A. And comparing anaerobic and aerobic respiration. A can be the answer. This can be the opposite. So our answer is C. We know that anaerobic respiration produces a small amount of energy while aerobic produces a large amount. And then 25, which of the following statements is not true about the xylem of a flowering plant? We know that it is non-living, so that's true. We know that it has lignin, that is true. And we know that it transports water and mineral salts. So it has to be E. It does not contain any mitochondria because it's dead when needed in the first place. So B is your answer. 26. Which option best identifies some of the transport substances in animals? For question 26. Is sucrose transported by animals?
No, miss.
Okay, so it cannot be B because we don't transport sucrose, we transport glucose. So our answer here in animals, so our answer is A, amino acid and hormones. If they had asked for plants, you could say 1, 2, and 3. But in animals, we don't transport sucrose. And even in plants, they don't transport sucrose. They they change glucose into starch and transport it, I believe. I think, I don't remember correctly, but I think that's what it goes. But in humans, we don't transport sucrose. And then for question 27, asking you about the heart to identify correctly the structures. So we know that number 1 is or, so this structure up here is our what? Okay, I'm seeing some person saying C and I'm seeing someone say A. We know that this is the aorta. this is our neutral glyphosate. Okay, so it's A because this is the artery. And this is the pulmonary vein. 28, the essential vitamin and mineral salt type of blood clotting in humans are vitamin K and calcium. Both of those are involved in blood clotting. So 28 answer is 29. Artificial immunity can best be described as immunity that you obtain E, exposure to a pathogen. If they had asked for natural immunity, what would have been the answer? So instead of artificial immunity, they had asked for natural immunity. A would have been the answer if they had asked about natural immunity. But artificial immunity is when they basically expose its vaccine. So you are exposed to the pathogen to allow your body to create antibodies for it. 30. Although glucose is found in blood plasma, it does not appear in the urine because of, so we're asking about the kidneys here. What stops it from appearing in the blood? D. Ultrafiltration. It is put into the filtrate in ultrafiltration. That is when things are pushed through the Bowman's capsule. But after that, it is selectively reabsorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. So the first tubule that it goes down into, that is when the glucose is reabsorbed. So it's selective reabsorption that removes it from the urine. What is the role, the best of the role of excretion in living organisms? See, to get rid of sick waste, because urine is not the only thing that is removed. Feces is only for digestion. It does get rid of excess water. The waste is what is more important in this case. And then 32, which is like a form of excretion in plants. We know this one. 32 is A. 33, answer for 30, 33 is close. Someone says C for 30. Do you have another answer? Or everybody's agreeing with C? Are we don't know? All right, so Joshua agrees that C is the answer. So it's irreversible movement. So remember that a growth movement is, for instance, when it is growing towards light or something like that. So if it has a light source over to one direction, it will curve and grow in that. You're saying this is irreversible. If you move that light source and put it in a different area, is the plant still going to go in that direction or is it going to change? So remember that reversible and irreversible. So what you consider, what are we considering as an answer? Reversible or irreversible? Is the growth movement reversible? Are we not sure based on that question? So Joshua said the growth is not reversible. it is reversible because we can, the plant is able to, it can change its movement. So if it's growing in another direction. However, we have two different types of movement in plants, and if it's talking about growth movement, it's talking about trophic movement. So this question kind of weird. So we're gonna work with C. Because the growth movement is more than likely not reversible. Even though it is growing in that direction, it may be. That's why I say I don't like this question because you have to work it out in your brain. Which one? So you say only 33. I'll come back to that. You have to think about that a little bit more. But it is between C and D. So we're gonna see which one is the best answer. For the growth movements, it is talking about the trophic, usually referring to the trophic. But as I said, we'll come back to question 33. Moving on, 34. Which of the following statements about the skeletal system is not correct? So what's not correct about the skeletal system? A, B, C, or D? We know that it gives the body its shape. We know that it produces blood cells. We know that it protects delicate organs. So B, you have living tissues inside of the matrix of the actual bone. So the calcium that is formed outside of that is what we know as the white bone. But you have living cells that are living inside of that as well. So your answer is B. And then for 35, your answer is B. That is how the bones are attached. So at the top of the bone up here and towards this end part up here, that's where the bones are attached. So your answer for 35 is D.
Excuse me, miss, can you remove
36
the
now.
red marks so I can see it properly?
And then for 36, now 36 is a question that will appear. But for 36, it's asking about the growth in the plant. It's asking you which one would be the tallest one. So which one out of them? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Which one would be the tallest? Let me hear some of the answers that we could think about. So somebody say A, somebody says B. Anybody else want to give their answer? So we have A and we have B. All right, so we start with B because this tip region of the plant is the growth region. So if you remove the growth region, the plant won't have any growth to do in this area. That is why you want certain plants to grow wider than taller. You put them in the center where you have the growth region. So B cannot be an answer. A is your answer. Reason B, both of these would grow because you have a transparent cap, meaning that light can pass through it. And this one doesn't have any cap at all. However, when they're growing, they would grow in this direction. in response to the light that is over here. So they would go and be curved. This one has a foil cap, so the tip is not exposed to the light. And because the tip is not exposed, it will go straight up. So 36, 1 is the answer A. You understand? All right. Then 37. We know what 37 answer is. What's 37? Is E. Then for 38, it is similar to the question that we did before, but they have changed a few things about it. So look at the question again. Which of the following options correctly identifies the structures labeled 1, 2, and 3? Swan says D. For 38, I was the other one. All right, just we're getting D. A. I saw C. In this one, there does not appear to be a really neuron. Just asking, well, hmm, yeah, there doesn't seem to be a relay labeled in this. We know that 3 is your effector. Or well, in this case, it is, hmm. We're coming back to 38 as well. 39. As I said, guys, if you cannot look at it on the first try and get the answer, they go to the different question. 39. The smell of hamburger being cooked causes Joan to salivate. Which of the following is the effector which brings about her response? Her saliva gland. That's why she begins salivating. Because that is what is releasing the saliva. And then question 40 is asking about germination. It shows the change in dry mass of an embryo and the endosperm during germination. From the graph, it is true to say that you know that the endosperm is the food reserve inside of the plant. So A says as the embryo begins to grow, the embryo begins to grow as the endosperm increases in mass. We see the endosperm going down, so A cannot be correct because it's a decrease in mass. The embryo and the endosperm decrease in mass at the same rate. That is also incorrect because we see the embryo going upwards, so it cannot be decreasing in mass. C, the embryo and the endosperm increase in mass at the same rate. We already know that endosperm was decreasing, so it cannot be that. So by elimination, our answer would obviously be D if you weren't sure. And then even when you look at the embryo grow, as the embryo grows, the food reserves are gradually depleted. And as I said before, we know that the endosperm is the food for the growing plant. So our answer for 40 is D. Which the best description of the disease is C. You're treated with antiretrovirals. Your control is by having one sexual partner, which is monogamy, and the prevention is abstinence or using condoms. So that is for AIDS. It's caused by an RNA virus. For 42, we know this sexual reproduction. For 43, which of the following forms of birth control is most likely to be effective? We know this as well. This is tubal ligation. We know number 44, which is P. 45 is new. Fertilization normally occurs in B. Where does fertilization occur? In the oviduct, which is also called the what? What is the other name we have for the oviduct? What if they have put another name there? What's the other name that they would have used? Fallopian tube. So oviduct or fallopian tube. And then for 46 to 47, an organism which causes a disease is D, their pathogen. And then 47, an animal which carries a disease causing the organism but is not adversely affected by it. You know already that is B, which is your vector. Then for 48, which of the following is not a consequence of plant or human disease? Food prices could decrease. But if we have plant diseases, it means that we have crops dying off, so the available crops that are there will be more expensive. And then if we have less persons to work, the cost of labor would affect all of those costs and everything. So food prices would also increase from here. Loss of productivity would obviously be one. We'd have absenteeism because the persons are sick, and we'd have more money being spent for education. So even if you wanted to work based on elimination, A would have been your answer. Which of the following is most appropriate for the treatment of chronic hypertension? 1 and 2. We know that vaccination cannot be used for hypertension. So it is obviously diet modification and exercise, which is A. Applying a thin layer of oil on the surface of an open pan can control the population of mosquitoes because it prevents the pupa from being able to obtain air. So C is your answer. On a certain Caribbean island, where should we know this one? The answer is the question has not changed. We know what this one is as well. B, a chromosome is a structure of DNA wrapped around histones. Number 43, which is not a characteristic of meiosis. We know that it was this. It was this. And we know that it was this. It does not maintain the diploid number while it is happening. Afterwards, when you have the combination of the gametes, it does, but when it is actually happening, it's not happening. It's not maintaining the number because it puts it in half. Then this one, both of whom are heterozygous for blood groups A and B, respectively, can have offspring that are likely to be. We might have to draw our diagram again. So if you have, so your blood groups are AO, BO, AE, and O. This is considered A type, B type, A, O type. Anytime you have two heterozygous organisms being reproducing with each other, your ratios will always be 25, 25, 25, 25 in terms of the genetic ratios. So your answer will be D. If you wanted to work it out, it says that one is heterozygous for blood group A and one is heterozygous for blood group B. So one would have this, one would have this. And when we come, we would have AB, we have AO, BO, sorry, you would have AO and O. So you have one AB, one BO, one AO, and one O. O type. So that's why I said each of them would have a 25% chance, because it is 1 in 4, and that is 25. So that's why D, the answer for 54 is D, because that is how the blood groups work. And then for 55, it asks which of the following terms characteristics. And it's visible if you like, when it is just genetics. Always remember physical. Zane, the son of James and Jennifer, may have inherited breaking colorblindness gene from his parents. Neither James nor Jennifer is colorblind. We know that the gene for colorblindness is X-linked, so it is carried on the X chromosome. The father is not colorblind, so we know that he, because he's male, he would have Y. And he's not colorblind, so he would have a dominant gene for it. The mother, even though she's not colorblind, she has two X, so she can carry two genes for colorblindness. We know that she is not colorblind herself, so she would have this one. But the possibility that he got the gene from his parents would mean that she would have this, the recessive allele for it. So that is why your answer would be A. Because despite the fact that none of them are colorblind, he has a possibility of being colorblind. It cannot be the father that determines it, because we know he is not colorblind, he can only carry the dominant allele. So in that case, it would have been dependent on the mother. So your answer would have been A. 57. Answer is A. When you are separating the sister chromatids, that is when they are going to go in your different cells. A person's are saying C, are person saying C the answer for this, or it's a different, was one of the past questions that we had asked about. Or 57. No response. So I'm assuming it was for a previous question. For 57, the answer is A. Yes, Gabby, I send the answers in the group. The question that I answered. And then for 58, a species consists, remember this is the question I asked you guys to pay attention to. It was the same question 58 on the past paper. It says a species consists of members that, and what do you see? Look at note D, infertile offspring. Yes, Joshua, that's why I said you have to read the question carefully. Yeah. So in this case, your most appropriate answer would be C, where they interbreed under natural conditions. D cannot work. Once you start talking about infertility, that it's not a species. And then for 59, it says the theory of evolution is based on natural selection. Which of the following is not a feature of natural selection? Your answer would In natural selection, it is talking about or well, the answer is between B and C. You do have competition taking place. You have variation that is passed on between the next generation. So it is between B and C. You can have a lot of offspring being produced and they're going to compete against each other, but the most fit one for the environment will survive. So because of that, I think B would be the most appropriate answer. If I say which one of them is not a feature. If the environment is not changing, you cannot have natural selection and evolution take place. So your answer would have to be B, or the most appropriate answer would be. And then we know this one already. Or did we? No, it wasn't this. They changed this question. Which of the following would be involved in the production of insulin by genetic engineering? We know that we have to put the human insulin gene into a bacterium, so one has to be there. C doesn't have one, so C is out. We know that the bacterium will produce insulin, so if it doesn't have three, it is out. So by elimination, the answer has to be C. The questions that we say we would go back to, I will look for those answers, or I will cross-check those answers and send them when I'm sending the paper. So we finished 2017, and we're gonna try and see how much of the 2022 paper we can get done. For the 2022 paper, if you are surprised, if you go through it, you will see a lot of the questions that we've already done repeated with only a few new questions. So we know question one already. It's B. So almost every paper, question one is asking about this. I don't know if they will change it for this year, but for the last maybe 5 or so papers, this has been question one answer. Question three has also shown up as well. So I'm not sure if they're gonna change anything, because knowing them they probably won't. So we know question one and we know question three. For question two, it asks which of the following sampling methods is most suitable for estimating the density of mushrooms in a garden. A, or quadrat, where we will look at them in the different segments and try to record their density. So two, and then this is asking about trophic levels. It says level one is represented by. So which one is trophic level one represented by? Zooplankton, phytoplankton, marine animal, mammals, or small fish and crustaceans. B, your phytoplankton, because that is where it starts. That will be your first level in the food chain or food. We know this, it's bacteria. We know this, it is parasitism and predation. So in this case, 1, 2 is C. We know this, it's A. Number 8, which of the following materials are considered to be non-biodegradable, meaning it cannot be broken down? A, sardine cans, yeah. Human activity will have the least impact on what? Which of these four? Eutrophication, overpopulation, coral bleaching, or formation of fossil fuels. Which one would humans have the least immediate impact on? D. It cannot affect the formation of fossil fuels because they take millions of years to form. Replanting trees on a bare hillside is an example of D. Reforestation and restoration. The fact that they use the word replanting and then it's on a bare hillside, it showed that the hillside at some point had trees. So that's why they say restoration. And the fact that you're trying to put the environment back to what it was before, that is where the restoration comes in. We know our answer for this. This is 1 and 2. This is A. So increase in contraceptive use and epidemic of deadly disease. So all they did for this to change it up is that they took one of the options. But these two are most likely going to account for the decrease in population between those years. We know this is for your nucleus because it is what controls the cellular activities. 13, we know question 13 answer. It says which of the following is incorrect. We know it has to be A because it says cell wall is found in both plant and animal cells. And we know that that's not how it goes. We know that it is found in plant cells only. And then 14, which of the organelles is directly involved in photosynthesis? 14 would be C. 15, we've seen 15 already. What's our answer for 15? They have not changed the question. It's going to be B. 16, autotrophic organisms derive their nutrients from C. So that is what they use to make their nutrients. The H2O, the CO2. That's what they use to make their nutrients, and these are inorganic substances. 17, which of the following features does not enhance? At least we know this one. B, presence of vascular bundles. 19, what's the answer for question 8? C, protein, starch, and non-reducing sugar. You know, so question 20, we've seen question 20 already, and our answer is D. The effect of temperature. You know that when it reaches 40, it is going to be declining because of denaturation. We know 50, hypertension, C. We know 22 is B, because this is the rib cage. 23 is a new question. So it says the respiratory structure shown above is that of the question 22. Alveolus. We know question 24, nothing has changed. It's asking about nicotine. We know that that increased heart rate. We know question 25, it is D. The surface area to volume ratio is too small for diffusion. We know question 26. What's question 26's answer? Question 27, we know question 27. Question 28, we know question 28. What's question 28's answer? And if they had asked about natural immunity, what it would have been? A, if they asked about natural acquired immunity, what would have they been? Natural acquired. D, because it is passed on in the mother's colostrum. So if they ask you any of those, you can answer it. 29 is new. Under which conditions will the rate of transpiration in plants be highest? B, sunny and high wind speed. Sunny increased temperature, you have higher transpiration rates, and once wind is blowing, you have higher transpiration rates as well. In the transportation of solutes in the phloem, the source is identified as any area of the plant. We know this answer. What's their answer? C. 31 is new. We're looking at the diagram of the plant. Part of the plant is the most starch. C. C is our storage organs. And that is where they would store excess food, and they store it in the form of nutrients. In the form of starch, sorry. In that case, it would be a tuber. And then question 32 is new as well, and it is asking to identify the function of each of the labeled parts. So 1, what happens in those areas? So someone says B, ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, and water conservation. So that's correct. So 1 is the Bowman's capsule. 2 is your and 3 is your question 33. We had said we're gonna go back to that, so I'll cross-reference it and let you guys know. The word is C for now. Again, I'll check it and let you guys know which answer we will use. Then it asks for locomotion. We've seen this question already. So what's our answer for 34? Mm-hmm. 1 and 3, sorry. 35, we know 35. C. We know this one is A. 37. So your answer is B, because the relay will be in the specific part of the nervous system. That is there. We know what 38 answer is. We know it is B. We know 39. What's 39? We know 40. C, units of time. We know 41. What's 41? We know 42. We know 43 and 44. We know 45. We know 45. We know 46. And we know 47. Forty-seven. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's the most appropriate. None of these answers are really nice, but this is the, yeah, well, yeah, 47 is the answer. Transmit is these carrying organs. Yeah, yeah. When I read it at first, it never made no sense, but reading it over again makes sense. Then you have 48. You know, 48. This should know 40, 49. Yeah. We know 50. What's 50? We had 51 already, and we know that that is the sequence 3, 3, 2, 1, and then 4. So let's see. We know 52. We know 52, 53, and 54. '55, albinism is called by recessive allele. Two normal parents produce an albino child. This it can't be A, because if they were both homozygous recessive, they would both have albinism, both parents. If one parent was homozygous dominant and the other heterozygous, we still wouldn't have any of the children having albinism. One parent was homozygous dominant and the other was homozygous recessive. This takes it out, because if it was homozygous recessive, it means that the parent would have albinism, but we know that we have two normal parents. So your answer is B. If you wanted to work it out for yourself, if both parents were homozygous recessive, it would be for both parents. And both parents would have had albinism. And we know that that is out by the two normal parents. if you had both heterozygous parents, always know that when it is heterozygous, both parents are heterozygous, you always have a 25% chance of having a child that has the recessive allele. So you're going to end up with two heterozygous offspring, or you have a possibility of having two heterozygous offspring, one homozygous dominant and one homozygous recessive. So it's only when both parents are heterozygous and they themselves do not show the recessive trait that they can have a child having the recessive condition, because both of them have or carry the recessive trait, but they do not express it. So they're both carriers for it. We know 56 and we know 57 and we know 58. So we know 56, 57, A, and what's 58? All right, and you see in the past three questions, the three papers that we have done, this has been question 58 in all three of those questions. It's only that in the 2023 paper, this said fertile. In 2022 and 17, it said infertile. So still read carefully. 59, we know this one, and we know 60. And for 60, and that is it. We are done with 3 past papers. And we saw all of the questions that would have repeated. You realize that if you did the other 2 papers and now you're going through this last one, and you can just breeze through the paper because you have seen the majority of the paper already. And for most years, that is how it is. So if you are going to go through any more other than the ones that we have done, do 2020 and 2021 and 2019. I have, yeah, so do those 3 papers as well, because they changed the syllabus in 2017, I think. So from 2017 up would have been all from the same syllabus. Not to say that you can't do 2016 and downwards, because some of the questions would still be there because the topics are still on the syllabus. But if you do the past 5 years, you will still work or you'll still be fine. Because we've done 3 of those 5 years, and questions that are there are 3 of those 6 years, whichever one it is. And all of the questions that are there, majority of them have repeated. So we should be okay. Right, guys? Is everybody okay? Do we feel good about the paper one?
Yes, yes.
Joshua? All right, so we feel good. So as I said, it's not a if it repeats, it will repeat, because CSEC is not going to make new questions, I'm telling you. Because you realize that we did the 2023 paper and the 2017 paper. COVID happened in between those 2 papers, and they're still the same things that they're asking about. They were almost the same. So we don't worry about if it repeats. If almost every paper one that you have gone into, you will see a repeat of questions. I'm not sure about maybe maths, maths calculation, but chemistry, bio, English, all of those questions, all of those papers, the questions will be repeated. So go through, as I said, try to cover 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. If you can get those 4 papers and go through them as well, you will see that majority of the questions line up with what we have done in these three past papers. So you guys should be okay. As I said, if you see a question, if you're going through and you see a question that you're not sure about, you can send the question in the group and we can answer it there. So you should be okay.